Okay, here's our last dashboard project, and on the surface it doesn't look, it's not nearly as complicated as the other one that we did, but we're going to make a button where we can update the data. So here's our goal. We're going to have our files with our master lookup table, and then we're going to create a folder with the current month's data in it. So for January, February, and March, we'll have the latest month is March, the previous month is February, and we'll compare those 2 months, but then we're going to keep a running total of all the months together. If we just update our data and put April into all months, and come back to our spreadsheet and click our button, the sales overview changes to April. It shows what the previous month was, that the sales stayed steady, and everything updates, including the line chart. Okay, let's get to it. Okay, for this dashboard, our first step is going to be to set up a folder. And so let's make a new folder, and I'm just going to call it all months. And then this will be the folder that contains all of the data that we have so far. So I want to start off with just January and February and March in there, and then later we'll update it with April and May. Okay? All right, now let's bring in our data. I need to bring in the lookup tables again. From the customer table, transform the data. I need the customer ID and the name, but I don't need any of these. So I'm just going to delete those, and then close and load to, only create a connection and add the data to the data model. So make sure that you load to so that you can change those settings. And now do it again, get the data from the Excel workbook, master lookup tables, import it. Let's do product this time, transform it. From the product table, I need the ID, I don't need the name. I need the group, and I don't need to know the chiller stock one. So close and load to the data model, only creating a connection. And our last one, from a file, workbook, lookup tables. This is the salesperson. And this one I only need the name and the ID, and that's all there is. So I'm just going to load it. I don't need to transform anything. Only create a connection, add to the data model. Okay, now I need to bring in the sales data. In the past we've done from a text or CSV. This time we're going to do from a folder. It's going to bring in all of the files that are within the same folder. The folder that I want is the all months folder. And notice that it doesn't give you options for anything except folders. So open that. And in that folder there's February, January, and March in alphabetical order. I'm going to combine the data. This will make one super file, but I also want to transform as I go. So whatever transformations I make on a sample file are going to carry over when all the data is combined. It'll do all the same transformations on every file and then combine them into one big file. Okay, I don't need to have the source file name. I'm not going to use that. I don't need the individual line IDs. And again, I'm not destroying the data, I'm just not bringing it in. So order ID, customer ID, salesperson, the date, perfect. Okay, now I need to add the sales amount, so add a column. And with the price selected, then I have access to this multiply. Go to a column, get the quantity. Let's change the name of this. Excuse me. So click on it, and then with an F2, so I inserted sales amount. So you can update the names of these so that they're not so generic. And then double clicking on this header, I can call it sales amount. And then see it says renamed column. With an F2, I can say rename sales amount. Just so that if I need to go back and edit anything, I have a better idea what I did. Okay, then I need, from the order date, I need the month. Add a column, yes. The month number, and then select the order date again and add the month name. Perfect. And now I've got, it looks through the first 1,000 rows, so if I say load more, it'll look through all of the rows. I've got data for January, February, and March that will be combined in here. Okay, I want to know what my latest month is. So if I go to the month column and I load more, I have month 1, 2, and 3. My latest month will be the biggest in here, assuming it doesn't carry from December over into January, which we don't. So with this highlighted, I want to transform. And on the transform, I go to statistics. I want it to find the maximum number of this month. And now the entire query is that single value of a 3. Okay, let me first rename this. I'm going to call it my max month. And that max month is actually a variable name for the results of this query. So that 3 is now stored as max month. And but I want to go back to where I had my data. So on this filtered rows, I didn't actually filter anything, did I? I think I can take that out. So I inserted the month name, and I have my max month of 3. Okay, now what I would like to do is go back to this step where I had all my data. Like I want to start from here. So click on max month and hit this FX where it's add a step. It's the function button. I add a step, and the hashtag is for all of these different steps. So I could go back to any one of those. I want to go back to this inserted month name, which is that one. And then hit enter. And now I have all the month data, and then I get this max month, and then I go back to all my data. So let me give this a name. This is my go back step. Okay, now from here I want to add a new column. The purpose of this column is to tell me what the latest month is. So this is going to be a conditional column. I'm going to call it latest month. If the month is equal to 3, that's my most recent, that would be March, then put the value of latest into this new column that I'm going to create. But add a clause if the month is equal to 2, then call it previous. Otherwise, like if it were January, give it a null. That's an empty value. Click OK. And now anywhere for February I have previous, for March I would have latest, and January I have nothing. Which is great, except it's not always going to be March and 3 and February and 2. However, right here, Power Query gives you the programming code for what it just did. So it created a table, it added a column starting with the go back step, created a column called latest months. If month was equal to, that's where I put in the 3. Okay, here's what's cool. I can change this to max month, and I'm not able to do that in the conditional column editor itself, but if I create it using a number, then I can go back and modify the code, do max month, take away 1. So previous is still February and latest would be March. Okay, that's all I need. So let's close and load 2, put it in the data model with only a connection, and then let's manage. show the diagram view. Here are all of my queries that I just did, all the data that I pulled in. And in my all months, I have the month name, and the latest month. So let's make our connections to tie these tables together. Perfect. Okay, now in the data view, that's where I can see the data that I brought in and what's in it. If I go to the all months, I have the option on sales amount. I'm going to want to get totals in here. And this is kind of interesting. You can see how they doctored the data, how they've got a whole bunch of the same thing in there. Anyway, on sales amount, go to the bottom of the column and then go up to auto sum. And it's going to create a measure based on the sum. So the sum of sales amount, it gives me the total amount in that data, and then if you right click it, you can format and say you want it to be currency with no decimal places. Okay, we'll close this down. You say, well, what does that do? Well, now if you create, actually let me open that again quickly. If I go to my diagram view, there's now all of my column names, but now there's this new thing called a measure that's the sum of the sales amount. Let's create a pivot table. Insert from the data model in our existing worksheet. From all months, I want to have the latest month and put that in a filter. And then I want to know what the sales were. Now for my filter, I can select multiple items, and I only want the latest month. And in the rows, let's put the month name. Okay, now I'm going to have this latest month. I'm going to give that a name, call it latest, give it a named range. And then here, I want to have just that that reference. So if when you click on it, if you get a whole get pivot data thing, you don't want the get pivot data. So instead, you could copy this and paste it here and paste it as a link, so that the value in that cell is just the B4, just refers to this. Okay, that's my latest month. Now I want to have very similar. So I'm going to go copy and paste it over here. This time, instead of the latest month, I want the previous month. And let's take February and give it a named range. That will be previous. And copy and paste in here as a link to get that sales amount. And notice that everything's formatted. So the great thing about using a measure is that everything comes in formatted. I'm going to remove my totals just because they bother me. Okay. Latest month, previous month. Now let's get all of the sales data for it. So a new pivot table. In fact, let me just copy this one. And I'll edit it. Let's do, I need all of the product ID numbers, product group, excuse me, product group, and then the sum of the sales amount, but I need it for the 2 current months. So let's take the latest and the previous and make those columns and remove my filter. Oh, sorry, that's why. So I want to see latest and previous. And L always comes before P, so in alphabetical order, my latest month will always be in my left column. I want to sort my data based on my latest month, from largest to smallest. Excellent. And then the last thing I want is to create a chart. For the chart, I want to have all of the sales data. So let me insert another pivot table. This time I want to have all of the sales for all of the months. Take out the latest months, put the month name in. January, February, and March sales, I want them in month order. So if I click on here, it will recognize that I've got names of months and it has a custom list. So if I sort this from A to Z, January goes up to the top. Otherwise, it came in the order that it appeared in the data, which was the order that the files came in through my folder. Okay, so here's my sales amount. Let me pivot table analyze, put in a pivot chart, a line graph. The legend isn't adding anything. I can get rid of the filled buttons. For my title, I will do sales by month. Let's just scoot this over and we'll make it bold, shall we? Oh, I wanted to put a marker on these. Right click, so select it, right click, format the data series. On the fill bucket, there's a marker. I just want to make dots where these vertex points are. So on my marker options, a built-in marker, I like this one. Let's change the color to a dark blue. That's for the marker. Let's go to the line, change the color to that same dark blue. Okay. Oh, I got the border but not the fill. Let me try that again. Format the data series, fill bucket, marker on the fill, this color bucket. There we go. Okay, now it's all the same color. And I'm okay with the grid lines. All right, let's put this all together and then watch it update. Let's make a dashboard. This is going to be very minimal because the purpose is just to show how you can do this. So insert text box. It's going to be my header. I will fill it with my same dark blue color. For the reference, I want to have the name of my latest month, which I created in a named range. So latest, and now it shows up there. It says March, but it's the wrong color. Let me change that. Change the font to gray and make it bigger. And we'll center it and center it. And then once that's in here, if I click on the box, I can continue to type. So I can do sales overview for, and then I've got March. Okay, let's bring in March sales in another text box, and we'll fill it slightly lighter blue, put in latest, update the font, update the size, center it. I'm going to keep it left justified for this, and then I need another text box. Well, actually, let me copy this and paste it. And on this one, instead of latest, I want previous. Now I have February, update the font. Two more text boxes. This will be for the sales amount. Make it the same blue. I don't want to have a line around it. And I want it to reference the March sales amount, which is this. So that's why it needs to be a cell link. Change the font. Make it a little bit bigger. See, in the March I did 20, so I'll do 20 point here. Bring that in. That looks good. And then for February I need the same thing. Let me just paste one down here. Update the reference. To the previous sales value. And for February I'm doing slightly smaller point. Looks like, there we go. Okay. Now, one more thing. I want to compare. I want to have a comparison. So I want to take my latest sales divided by last month's sales, my previous sales. So I'm at 116%. Let's take that, subtract off the 1, 16%, make it a percent with 1 decimal place, and then put some conditional formatting on it. I want to use arrows to show how my sales, so sales went up. Then once that has been applied, I can manage the rules and then select it and edit. I want to have a up arrow if sales increased by more than 2% and a down arrow if they decreased by more than 2%. So I'm going to have a positive number and a negative number, so I can't use percents. Instead I have to change it to a number, 0.02 as a number for a green arrow, 0.02, and then it's a number, negative 0.02. Okay, that should work. In order to bring this into, what I would like is to copy this and paste it onto my dashboard. Right here, nice, but which looks great, but if you want it to update automatically, which I do, you can't just paste it in, it won't be dynamic. Instead, you have to come to your dashboard and create a picture. Okay, I need this to be a picture, and I want to have my font show up. Well, I want to have the fill be the same as the fill on the other page, that blue, and now I want my font to show up. The arrow will be fine. I don't want any border around it. And then once I've got it looking just the way I want, I'm going to copy it and paste it onto my dashboard as a linked picture. And I can resize it as a picture. There you go. Let's take these three things and align them, align their middles. Okay, the next thing that I want is this. I want all of these values. I'm going to bring in this table, and I'm going to bring it in as in a table format. So I'm just going to copy, come to the dashboard, and paste it, but paste as links. So I lost my formatting. Let me update that. Make it a little bit easier to read. Okay, and make the columns wide enough so that it should always work. Now on this, I want to have this be my latest month. I want this to be the previous month. Format. In bold, let's center it. And it comes in sorted. Okay, oh, let's put a nice border on it. That'll look good. And then let's bring our sales by month. I'm just going to cut that and paste it in. And adjust it all the way across There we go. Okay, so it's not, I mean, there's better looking dashboards out there, but this will fit my purposes. Here we go. What I want to do now is to take this dashboard and update the data. So go to your All Months folder and take April and put it in. So now in All Months you have January, February, March, and April, and in that alphabetical order. Okay. Over on this spreadsheet, if we have done everything correctly, if I bring up my queries again, you can either go Data, Queries and Connections, or over here, that's the Queries and Connections icon. Go to your All Months, and this is your refresh button. Click on that. And let's see how our dashboard looks. Sales overview for April. April's sales amount. March comes down to the previous. Sales are steady. I have April and March and all my new updated. Look at my graph. Also has April. So everything updated on all of my pivot tables with latest month, previous month, and all of the links work. I know, it's cool. So the last thing is to make it so that whoever uses this dashboard has an easier time of doing this, and we're going to make a macro that will do the refresher so they don't have to pull up the query. So from the developer tab, if you don't have the developer tab, go to File, Options, Customize the ribbon, and make sure that your developer tab is checked. Then when you come back, you should have this option. So on your developer tab, I want to record a macro. And my macro will be, let's call it refresh all months. Excel will now record any movements that I make and anything that I click on. So I want to go to the All Months tab and hit the refresh button. And that's it. Stop the recording. You now, if you look in your macros, you have a macro called Refresh All Months, and if you want to know what it does, it goes to the active workbook, opens the connections, takes the query, and refreshes it. Let's insert, get a button, make it about this big. What macro do you want? I want it to refresh all the months. Hit OK, and then I can double click here and change this to be update data. Let's try it. In my files, I want to take April and pull it back out so that all months has January, February, March only. And now let's try going back in our workbook and updating our data. How cool is that? Okay, one more time. Let's take April and May, put it in, come back in and update our data. January, February, March, April, and May. May and April show up as the previous and the latest. It's the sales overview for May. Okay, a couple of little design things just to make this look a little bit better. So remove the grid lines and then take your extra columns and Control Shift and right arrow, select them all, right click and hide them. That way your dashboard, like your workbook, is only that wide. Okay, this is our final dashboard. So when you submit this, I will change your query to have it point to data that includes June, and I'll double check that everything will update for June. Okay, thanks guys.